Turn up. Pump up the volume. Boston Broadcasts.
It's Ariana Grande, Into You. Another thing that I'm definitely into is chatting to Dr. Hendrik Botha, Head of Institution at Boston. Dr. Hendrik Botha, how are you?
Morning, Dubbz. I'm well, thank you. And morning to all our listeners, and especially our students.
Thank you so much for taking the time out. There's a lot of things happening at the moment. And one of the first things I was like, how are you responding to the situation with the two colleges, without having to mention the names? Are there any steps that are being taken to reassure that your students at Boston, that their institution is not at risk for cancellation of registration?
It's let me first start off by saying it's really lovely being live with you this morning on Boston Broadcast.
Thank you.
I know we haven't had an earlier opportunity for an earlier introduction with the students, so I really privileged the opportunity to speak directly with you and the students. So to step right off the bus, so to speak, and address this matter of the cancellation of registration of certain institutions in the industry and in the sector of private higher education directly. Let me just first state how robust the regulatory regime is, and this may sound at odds considering that certain institutions face cancelling of registration versus others that don't. It's in fact not at odds, because the principle is we report in this regulatory regime annually on all facets of the institution and on all facets of governance, of financial management, of quality assurance, of student data, of student successes, of students' ability to graduate and those that do graduate. We report on our learning management systems and its operations, the entire institution. And all of these reports is not only self-reported. There's a series to make this robust and credible. There's a series of external verifications that external auditors and external agencies conduct to verify, is your occupational health and safety actually meeting the requirements? Is your quality assurance of your programs and your content meeting the standards? That would be, for example, the CHE. Is your financials in order? That would be the external auditors. The student data, is it accurate? Is it correct? That's what reflects in the system. Does that reflect on student reports? That's what reflects in the system. Is that in fact what was graded and awarded to students? If a name appears on a certificate, is that in fact the correct name? Should it be so? So all of these very self-reports transpire, and then external verification on these reports, and then these are submitted annually to the Department of Higher Education and Training. And the purpose for that really is that they can have a high level and a detailed level insight into the institution and its ability to govern itself well. So that when something fails, or when something seems failing, or an element seems that need improvement, they can engage with the institution to ask, what improvements are you making? How are you going about that? Because the principle is also, as the department mentions themselves, it's to build institutions. The ideal world is not to close any institution. The ideal world is to remedy and build strong institutions. And why strong institutions important? Not just because we have the trust of students, but we're also working all together to develop all the human resources and the human resource capital of South Africa, in line with the national objectives for 2030 and the national human resource development objectives. So the private sector has tremendous scrutiny. So when an institution fails, and it's given the opportunity to comply and to come up to scratch. And at some point when they don't, the regulator must take action like in any other industry. Like literally if it's the banking sector or the telephonic sector or the ICT sector, if they need to step in, they need to step in. So now the unfortunate part is, it is an absolute tragedy. That we must recognize. It's an absolute tragedy that these students feel potentially left in the lurch. It's a tragedy that it's happened to the sector, and it's now the question of how can they remedy and work with the department, and what options are there for students going forward?
No, it is absolutely tragic. You mentioned remedy. Some of these students are now obviously desperate, and they may come knocking at Boston if they haven't already. Is Boston in a position to assist, and what would the process to enroll them be in such a case?
So the first tier, the first tier represents really itself in South Africa's progressive policy on recognition of prior learning and credit accumulation and transfer.
Yes.
So in practice, what this means is that students are able to take their results, the incomplete or complete results, and present them at another institution like Boston for a similar qualification or another qualification if they deem to want to change track, so to speak, academic tracks, and go in a different direction, for recognition and for advanced placement. So that those credits, in fact, exactly like the policy reads, it's the recognition of prior learning, and it's the credit accumulation and transfer. You've accumulated a bunch of credits to date, and you can present them at Boston, and we can evaluate them. And the fortunate position we're in is that this is dealt with on a case-by-case basis, because each student's case will be pretty unique. Unique in what they've enrolled for, unique in where they're at the moment, in that particular program, or which credits they've accumulated, and what their new target objective or similar target objective is, in order to map and marry those decisions and assist them with incomplete or complete results in order to move forward.
You know, I feel at ease because I think I can say, Boston students, you are safe. You are in good hands. But Doctor, I must also just add, would there be any financial implications of enrolling these students? Would there be additional costs over and above what they have already paid?
So at this point in time, that unfortunately is the reality we need to honestly address. And there will be additional costs. There won't be costs associated with applying with us. There won't be costs because that's a service we render to all students or applicants at no cost. Apply, let's review your documentation. If it's incomplete, we'll request more submissions or additional submissions of information sets. Go through the application process that we can make a decision and then give you an outcome so that you confirm registration, where there will be, unfortunately, then costs. So if you've already paid the other institution, you are unfortunately going to have to pay us for the remaining modules that you need to complete. But having said that, there is the underlying principle that as part of assuring students in the Boston system,
yes,
of how this would play itself out in the unlikely event, say, this kind of tragedy befalls us. Knock on wood. I'm confident it won't. So we have at Boston City Campus financial sureties in place, which is underwritten by external financial services providers, meaning we don't underwrite the policy, so the policies are secure, and these policies are annually reviewed and annually renewed, and these policies are ceded to the Department of Higher Education and Training, and annually we go through this moment towards the end of April. By coincidence, we're now heading into April, to file those document sets with the department. So in the event that something should happen to Boston City Campus, that students can see out the academic years at other institutions through the mechanism of the department clawing into that insurance policy.
Oh, wow, that's brilliant. So the financial surety that Boston has, if we were to find ourselves in this situation, the students would be able to use this at another institution and continue with their studies without incurring any additional costs.
Yes, correct.
So incredible.
So that really is also the effort to assure students we're well governed. We are in good standing on all the metrics we have with all of the regulatory and accrediting bodies. And to further provide assurance to students is the additional and voluntary accreditations that we attract from time to time. So by way of example, our primary accreditation is with the Council on Higher Education. Then we seek voluntary additional accreditations, and that's by way of example with the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants, which accredits the Bachelor of Accounting degree towards the CASA track. We have the British Accreditation Council that accredits from the UK the whole of the institution. And these entities provide additional insight and confidence about the institution, because it's not only the Department of Education, and it's not only the financial sureties we provide, and it's not only the CHE that looks at us, but it's also these other entities that go through our financials, that go through our operating structures, that look at student services and support, that look at the records, and they also meet with sample representatives of students. So, by way of example, we recently have undergone the re-accreditation moment with the British Accreditation Council. The outcome will only be made known in the second half of this year for the next 5 years. But in that, there was a call made to students to participate in private teams meetings as groups with them, and similar with their officers, and similar with SAICA. When we undergo monitoring visits, they make a call to students to meet with them, so that they can also glean from the students what's the experience at Boston, what's happening, so that they can determine if there's any causes of concern or areas for realignment and improvement. So all of these things read together, to me, is about providing the confidence and the assurance that the system is working, it's functional, and with the student at the center of this being.
There is such diligence, and I think I can safely say that our house is in order, and I think the students listening are also quite at ease and happy. So thank you so much for all those details, the information, and just also assuring us, Dr. Hendrik. When we return on a lighter note, we're also going to be chatting about the service survey completed in 2023 by the students, yes?
Yebo.
Okay, that's coming up in just a bit. Stick around.
Boston Broadcast.
Your campus companion.